Today I want to talk a little bit about the long-term progression of a cyclist. Specifically, I want to talk a little bit about the timeline of what it takes to really build an engine from the ground up. And I've been thinking about this for a while, and the thing to me that makes the most sense in terms of being able to communicate what the timeline looks like is to compare the development of an athlete to college. Now, I'm talking specifically about pro path here, and the reason why I'm talking about that is because the amount of time that I put into a pro path athlete works out to be about 500 hours in a year. And so the timeline for one of my amateur athletes who work with me is going to be a little different because obviously they're working, they're putting in less time and everything. So if you could give, essentially a full schedule to cycling, then this would be the timeline you could expect. So when a pro path cyclist begins with me, typically they're about a Cat 2 and Cat 3, Cat 2, and this correlates roughly with high school education, right? You've made it through the lower levels and you're a pretty good bike racer, you've won some races or you've just done a lot, and so here you are. And then once we start working, you have, let's say, 1 year, 2 years. And after 2 years of working together, I would sort of expect that that's a little bit like getting an AA degree. And at that point, I could say that a rider who has done 2 years of work is able to go out and be competitive at the national level in the amateur. So he would be, or she, a very good Cat 1. So after 2 years, then you start moving into like the junior year, the senior year, but then realistically to actually be a good, solid professional, it takes about 4 years. So obviously, if for somebody like Justin, who's starting at 18, when he is 22, he'll be ready to go out and race in the pros. He can sort of, bump up that timeline a little bit if he, wants to work harder, do extra work and do things like that. But for the most part, it's going to be about 4 years of work, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then on the 5th year, actually, that's when he'll be ready to go and be competitive in the pro ranks. And then after that, you do another 2 years after that, you have a master's degree, right? And so after you have your master's degree, it could be 1 year, could be 2 years, kind of depending on, then you're ready to take that next step up. Then you do another year or two after that, be a PhD, and that would be what you need in order to compete at the world tour level. So the reason why I'm explaining this is because I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about what is involved in actually laying down all of those years of building and moving forward. So what I'd like to do here is show you a power profile of Eno and just kind of show you his progress. When he started in 2014, this is what his power looked like. This was before we did any training. And as you can see, his 5-second sprint was 12:50, 1 minute, and then down to his 20-minute power is 3:20. And as we went along and we started training, what you'll see is that his sprint doesn't really change at all. 12:50, and then now it's 12:40, 12:50. So that is because we never really worked on it. However, if you look at his 20-minute power, it went up steadily to 340, then 364, 382. That was a little bit of an anomaly. Then 390, 413, and then the highest we've seen so far is 420 this year. And then also his 5-minute went up similarly, 396 to 495. And that is typical in a lot of ways, actually. I usually tell my athletes that they can expect to see about a 10% gain, plus or minus a few. And so obviously Eno had a big jump in the first year, and then it got a little bit more steady. Now if you look over here at Justin, so Justin, his profile is fairly similar. He's went from 241, and then right now his 20-minute power is about 265. So that's a little over 10% that he's gained. And so his 5-minute power similarly went up actually pretty well, from 276, and the highest we've seen so far this year is 328. So overall, this is about what I would expect to see in terms of progress, about 10% a year. And obviously Eno isn't gonna keep going up much past 420, but he still has some room to grow. And Justin, obviously, he still has quite a ways to go in terms of being able to produce power. Right now, his power is not much at all, but because he's so small, he can definitely move. And in the years to come, we should expect to see some good improvement. One of the things that I do is I have an integrated fit. So the training goes in hand with the fit, and I'm constantly tweaking those back and forth. So it's not like somebody fits the guys that I coach, somebody else, me, trains them, they have a nutritionist. The big thing about what we do is that everything is integrated. So here's the thing that I would say to anybody who is wanting to turn professional. The reality is that cycling is an industry, and it is a job like anything else. And so if you actually want to be successful, you're going to have to put in time and a lot of work. So using this timeline, it just kind of correlates in terms of understanding what it's going to take in order to get to the national level, the professional level, the world tour level. Obviously, this doesn't work perfectly for everyone. Everybody's a little bit different. And, if you can start even younger, so somebody who is starting at, say 16, going all in on cycling and really dedicating their lives to it, then obviously that's going to, bump up their timeline. So overall, you have to really be thinking in terms of, this is a job, this is something that I want to do, this is something that I'm putting my whole life into, and then you have to work at it for years. This is not something that's just going to take 1 year or 2 years. When I start with athletes, I usually start them right away on making sure they have a proper bike fit. And I'm going to explain more about that in a future video, just kind of explaining the reason why that I set everybody up the way I do. I keep getting a lot of questions like, why do you set everybody so low? There's a reason for that, and a very good reason too, actually. And then we do a lot of weight training and big gear work. And again, people ask, what's the point of that? You're never going to see those peak torque values in cycling. That's true, but it has to do with muscle fiber typing, and I will get into more of that in this coming season. As we delve into the off season, I want to explain a lot more about what it is that I do. So there's no shortcut to this process. It takes a certain amount of time going forward, and then also just time, each year. And if you are really serious about this, generally I try to talk people out of wanting to turn pro because it is so hard. But if you are serious about it, then you really have to think about it in those timelines of like, do I want to get a PhD at this? Am I okay with like an AA degree? you know, kind of where do you fall on that spectrum? So the people who I'm working with, I'm trying to develop them so that they have the tools that are necessary to go out and then be successful. So that is what I have to say about cycling. Cycling is an education, and you know, just something to think about in terms of like what's involved if you actually want to be successful at cycling. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. You're really going to have to work at it. All right, thanks for watching.